The grandfather clock in the Langley Mansion's foyer struck 11, its deep chimes reverberating through marble halls that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Amara Wilson, a 25-year-old Black American woman, adjusted a bouquet of crimson roses in a delicate crystal vase, her nimble fingers arranging each petal with the precision of an artist. Her rich brown skin contrasted softly with the vibrant blooms, a quiet reminder of her roots in Atlanta, where her mother, a community gardener, had taught her to coax beauty from the earth. Amara's deep brown eyes, framed by long lashes, scanned the arrangement critically. She'd learned from her mother that every flower told a story, and these roses whispered of elegance and unspoken longing. The Langley estate in the Hamptons, with its endless corridors and manicured gardens, felt worlds apart from the modest row house where she'd grown up, surrounded by jasmine vines and her mother's jazz records spinning tales of love and resilience. At 25, Amara was no stranger to hard work. A botany graduate from Spelman College, she'd taken this maid position to chip away at student loans that loomed like shadows over her dreams of owning a flower shop. For 2 years, she'd been invisible to the mansion's guests, a silent figure in a crisp black uniform, blending into the opulence like the polished silver she dusted daily. But Amara saw everything. The way the staff whispered about the family's wealth, the way Mrs. Carter, the 60-year-old head housekeeper with warm brown skin and a sharp wit, slipped her a book on Black women botanists to keep her dreaming. And most of all, she saw Ethan Langley, the 32-year-old white American CEO who owned this empire of glass and marble. With his fair skin and piercing blue eyes, Ethan carried himself with a quiet authority that made rooms hush when he entered. His dark hair, always neatly combed, framed a face etched with lines too deep for a man his age. Amara knew his habits better than she cared to admit. He took his coffee with a dash of cream, read poetry by lamplight in his study, and sometimes lingered over a framed photograph of his late wife, Claire, who'd died 3 years ago in a tragic car accident. The staff whispered that Ethan hadn't been the same since his heart was locked away, like the rare books in his library. Amara understood that kind of loss. Her father had passed when she was 10, leaving her with memories of his laughter and the scent of soil from their backyard garden. It was a wound that never fully healed, and she saw that same ache in Ethan's distant gaze. Tonight, the Hamptons were restless. A storm brewed over the Atlantic, its first gusts rattling the French windows that overlooked the estate's rose gardens. The annual Langley Charity Gala, a glittering affair of champagne and tuxedos, had been canceled, sending guests and most staff home early. The mansion, usually alive with chatter and clinking glasses, was now a cavern of silence, save for the distant patter of rain. Amara tucked a sprig of lavender into her uniform pocket, a habit from her mother's garden, where the scent had always meant home. She felt a prickle of unease, as if the storm was stirring more than just the weather. If you've ever felt like a single night could change everything, comment below and let us know. Your stories inspire us to keep sharing these tales. As she finished the bouquet, Amara's thoughts drifted to Ethan. She'd caught him once, late at night, reading Whitman's Leaves of Grass in his study, his lips moving silently as if the words could mend something broken inside him. She'd memorized how he moved, deliberate, controlled, yet with a flicker of vulnerability when he thought no one was watching. It was foolish, she knew, to let her heart linger on a man so far removed from her world, a black maid and a white CEO. The divide was more than money. It was history, society, the unspoken rules that kept her invisible. Yet, every time their eyes met, brief and fleeting, she glimpsed something that made her pulse quicken. A man who might see her, not just the uniform. The storm grew fiercer, lightning flashing across the sky, illuminating the foyer's gilded mirrors. Mrs. Carter had left an hour ago, pressing a thermos of tea into Amara's hands with a knowing smile. "You're too good for this place, child," she'd said, her voice carrying the warmth of someone who'd seen too much but still believed in dreams. Amara smiled at the memory, grateful for the older woman's kindness. She'd nearly finished her tasks, ready to slip out into the rain, when she heard a sound. A soft, melancholic strain of music drifting from the main salon. A piano, played with a tenderness that felt like a confession. Her breath caught. Only one person in this house played like that. Curiosity pulled her toward the sound, her sneakers silent on the marble floor. The salon's heavy oak doors were ajar, and through the gap, she saw Ethan at the grand piano, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his fair skin glowing faintly in the lamplight. His fingers danced over the keys, weaving a melody of loss and longing, a song she didn't recognize, but felt in her bones. Her mother had always said music was the language of the soul, and Amara, raised on Ella Fitzgerald and Mahalia Jackson, knew this was Ethan's heart laid bare. She hesitated, torn between retreating and stepping closer, her dark hands clutching the lavender sprig in her pocket. If this moment feels like the start of something unforgettable, hit that like button to let us know you're as hooked as we are. Amara's heart urged her forward, but her mind screamed caution. She was just the maid, a black woman in a white man's world, her dreams of flowers and freedom tucked away like the lavender in her pocket. Yet, as the music swelled, filling the empty mansion, she felt a pull stronger than reason. Ethan's head lifted, his blue eyes catching hers across the shadowed room, and for a moment, the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. What happens next? Subscribe and ring the bell to join us for the next chapter of Amara and Ethan's story. We can't wait to share where this melody leads. The piano notes drifted through the Langley Mansion's main salon, a tender, haunting melody that seemed to weave through the shadows cast by flickering lamplight. Amara Wilson stood frozen at the partially open oak doors, her fingers tightening around the lavender sprig in her uniform pocket. The storm outside battered the Hamptons estate, its gusts howling against the French windows, but the music held her captive, a raw confession in each chord. She recognized the improvisation, not Chopin or Beethoven, but something born from Ethan Langley's soul, a language of grief and longing that echoed the jazz records her mother used to play in their Atlanta home. Those evenings, spinning Nina Simone and Billie Holiday, had taught Amara that music could say what words never dared. Ethan sat at the grand piano, his usually pristine white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. His dark hair was mussed, as if he'd run his hands through it in frustration, and the golden glow of the lamp softened the sharp lines of his face, revealing a man unmasked by sorrow. Amara's breath caught, not from fear of being caught, but from the intimacy of seeing him so unguarded. She'd glimpsed his pain before, in the way he lingered over Claire's photograph. But this was different. This was Ethan stripped bare, his fingers pouring out a story of loss that felt achingly familiar. Her father's death had left a similar hole in her heart, one she'd filled with flowers and dreams, but never fully healed. She must have shifted, her sneakers scuffing the marble floor, because the music stopped abruptly. Ethan's head turned, his blue eyes meeting hers across the shadowed room. For a moment, neither moved, the air thick with the weight of their unspoken connection. "I'm sorry," Amara whispered, stepping back, her voice barely audible over the distant thunder. "I was leaving and heard the music. I didn't mean to intrude." "Don't apologize," Ethan said, his voice rougher than the polished tone he used with guests. "You're welcome to listen." There was an edge to his words, not anger, but something softer, almost pleading. He gestured to the space beside the piano, an invitation that felt like crossing a forbidden line. Amara hesitated, her mother's voice echoing. Music is truth, Amara. It doesn't care about titles or rules. She took a tentative step forward, then another, drawn by the melody and the man behind it. It's beautiful, she said softly, standing near the piano's polished curve. Sad, but lovely, like Nina Simone, when she sings about missing someone. Ethan's fingers hovered over the keys. Then a softer, slower melody began, as if testing her words. You know Simone? He asked, glancing up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Most people here prefer classical. Chopin or Mozart. Amara said, My mother raised me on jazz, a small smile tugging at her lips. Simone, Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald. She said their voices carried stories no one else dared tell. Your playing reminds me of that, like you're telling a story you can't say out loud. Ethan's hands stilled, his gaze locking onto hers. Music's the only place I'm honest, he admitted, his voice low. Claire used to say it was the only time I let the world see me. The mention of his late wife hung between them, not a barrier, but a bridge to something shared. Amara also knew loss, how it carved out pieces of you and left you scrambling to fill the gaps. Claire sounds like she saw you clearly, Amara said carefully, her fingers brushing the lavender in her pocket. My dad, he was like that with my mom. He'd listen to her sing in the garden, even when she was off key, and say it was the best music in the world. Loss doesn't erase that kind of love. Ethan's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his usual composure. No, it doesn't. But it makes you afraid to feel anything again. He played a single, mournful note, then looked at her. Come closer, Amara. The storm's getting worse. You shouldn't drive in this. Her name on his lips sent a warmth through her chest, unfamiliar and dangerous. He'd always called her Miss Wilson, keeping the distance of employer and employee. Now, in this quiet salon, with the rain hammering outside, that distance felt like a line they could cross, if they dared. I didn't know you played, she said, stepping closer, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. It's not something you share with the world. Not part of the CEO image, Ethan said with a bitter smile, his fingers tracing the keys without playing. Boardrooms don't care for broken men who play piano in the dark. But tonight, I don't know. It felt like the only way to breathe. Amara nodded, understanding more than she could say. Her mother had taught her to find refuge in music, the garden, and the small acts that kept her grounded. When I'm arranging flowers, it's like that, she said. Each petal and stem is a way to make sense of things, to create something beautiful, even when everything else feels heavy. Ethan's eyes met hers again, searching, as if seeing her for the first time. You make beauty out of nothing, Amara. I've noticed. How you arrange those roses makes it seem like they're telling a story. I've never seen anyone do that. Her cheeks warmed at the compliment, but she held his gaze. They are telling a story. Love, loss, hope. Flowers don't lie, even when people do. The words slipped out bolder than she intended, a challenge and an invitation. She thought of her mother's garden, where she'd learned to nurture dreams despite hardship, and wondered if Ethan could see the woman behind the uniform. The storm growled outside, a distant rumble, but inside the salon, the air crackled with something more electric. Ethan's fingers found the keys again, playing a gentle riff that echoed Nina Simone's Feeling Good, a song her mother loved for its promise of new beginnings. Do you sing? He asked suddenly, his voice almost shy. You said your mother sang in the garden. A little, Amara admitted, laughing softly. Not like her, but enough to get by. She mainly paused when I was alone with my flowers, then added, "You should play more. It suits you." "Maybe I will," Ethan said, his smile small but genuine, "if you'll listen." The invitation hung between them, fragile and heavy with possibility. Amara knew she should leave and slip back into the safety of her role, but the music, his vulnerability, and the storm outside held her in place. Have you ever heard a song that felt like it was written just for you? Drop a comment and share. Your stories keep this channel blooming. If this moment between Amara and Ethan pulls you in, hit that like button to let us know you're feeling the magic. And don't miss what happens next. Subscribe and ring the bell to catch the next part of their journey. The Langley Mansion study glowed with the soft flicker of 3 emergency candles, their light dancing across leather-bound books and mahogany shelves. Amara Wilson stood near the grand desk, her fingers brushing the lavender sprig in her uniform pocket, its scent grounding her as the storm outside battered the Hamptons estate. Ethan Langley poured ruby-red wine into 2 crystal glasses, his movements precise despite a faint tremor in his hands. The bottle, a vintage Bordeaux, gleamed in the candlelight, and its cost was likely more than Amara's monthly rent. But in this moment, with the rain hammering the windows, such differences felt like distant echoes. The air between them crackled with unspoken possibility, a melody lingering from the piano in the salon where Ethan had bared his soul. Amara took the glass he offered, their fingers brushing briefly, sending a quiet spark through her. She sipped the wine, its warmth spreading through her chest, and studied Ethan. His white shirt, sleeves still rolled up, revealed forearms taut with tension, and his blue eyes held a vulnerability she'd never seen in the polished CEO. She said, "I've never tasted anything like this." Her voice soft but steady. "My mom used to say good wine was like a song, better when shared with the right person." Ethan settled into the leather chair across from her, a faint smile curving his lips. Claire said something similar. She'd insist on opening a bottle for every small victory, no matter the price. His voice caught on his late wife's name, and he took a sip, his gaze drifting to the framed photograph on his desk. Claire's radiant smile and kind eyes. She believed in celebrating the moment, not the money. Amara nodded, her thoughts drifting to her mother's Atlanta garden, where they'd share sweet tea under the stars, celebrating small joys like a new bloom or a neighbor's kindness. "My mom taught me to find beauty in the everyday," she said, setting her glass down. She'd arrange flowers from our garden for anyone who needed cheering up, neighbors, church folks, even strangers. Said it was her way of singing to the world. Ethan's eyes met hers, searching. "You do that too with your flowers. I've seen how you arrange them. Like each bouquet is a story. It's remarkable." His words were earnest, stripping away the distance of their roles. Amara felt a flush of pride, but also a pang of caution. She was the maid, he the master of this mansion, a line not easily crossed, mainly when society's eyes judged every step. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows that danced like their unspoken thoughts. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "I haven't talked like this in years, Amara. Not since Claire. I built walls to keep everything, everyone, at a distance. But tonight," he trailed off, his fingers tightening around his glass. "Tonight feels different." "It does," Amara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She thought of her father, how his death had taught her to guard her heart. Yet music and flowers had always been her way of letting love in. "When I heard you play, it was like hearing my mom's records, Nina Simone especially, like you were reaching for something you're afraid to touch." Ethan's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. "Claire's accident. It was my fault. She wanted to photograph a gallery opening in the city. I said it was too late, too dangerous. We fought, and she went anyway." His voice broke, raw with guilt. If I hadn't tried to control her, she'd still be here. Amara's chest ached, not just for his pain, but for the echo of her own. Losing her father to a sudden illness, powerless to stop it. You can't control love, she said gently. My mom learned that after my dad died. She told loving someone means letting them go, even when it hurts. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, followed by a low rumble of thunder. Ethan stood, moving to the window, his silhouette stark against the storm. I don't know how to let go, he murmured. But when I look at you, I want to try. Amara's breath caught, the weight of his words pulling her toward him. She crossed the room, stopping just inches away. Ethan, she said, his name a quiet risk on her lips. He turned, his eyes dark with something that wasn't just grief, desire, raw and unguarded. His hand brushed hers, the contact electric, and they both froze, the world narrowing to the space between them. He said I should take you home, but his voice was rough, and he didn't move. The roads are flooded, Amara replied, her words a whisper, an invitation. Another flash of lightning revealed his face, close enough to see the silver flecks in his blue eyes. Amara, he breathed, her name a plea. In that moment, the storm, the mansion, and the rules of their world faded. Ethan's hand found hers, fingers intertwining, warm and sure. He led her through the shadowed study to the adjoining bedroom, a private sanctuary he rarely used. The candles cast a golden glow as he pulled her close, his lips finding hers in a desperate and tender kiss, a release of 3 years of loneliness. Amara melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her heart open despite the risks. For her, a virgin, this was a surrender to a love she'd only dreamed of, a melody as powerful as the jazz that had shaped her. As they moved together, Ethan's touch was reverent, his whispers of her name like a song. The night unfolded in a dance of passion and vulnerability, each moment a note in their shared story. When they finally lay in the quiet, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets, Amara felt both anchored and adrift, knowing this night would change their lives forever. What moments in your life felt like a song you couldn't stop singing? Share in the comments. We love hearing your stories. If this night of connection resonates, give us a like to keep the melody going, and subscribe with the bell to see where Amara and Ethan's love takes them next. Dawn crept through the heavy curtains of Ethan Langley's private bedroom, painting the room in soft golds and grays. Amara Wilson stirred slowly, her body warm and languid in the Egyptian cotton sheets, the scent of lavender from her uniform pocket mingling with Ethan's faint cologne. For a fleeting moment, she forgot where she was, lost in the memory of their night together. His tender touch, the way he'd whispered her name like a melody. Then, reality crashed in like a cold wave. She was in the Langley mansion, in her employer's bed, a line crossed that could never be undone. Ethan lay beside her, his arm draped across her waist, his dark hair mussed against the pillow. The lines of grief that usually etched his face had softened in sleep, making him look almost boyish. Amara turned carefully, studying him. His blue eyes were closed, but she could still feel the intensity of their connection from hours ago, when music and candlelight had dissolved the barriers between them. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Love is a garden, Amara. It blooms where you tend it, but can't grow in shadows. Last night had been a bloom, vibrant and fragile. But now, in the morning light, she wondered what kind of soil they could share. She was the maid, he the master of this Hampton's empire, a divide not just of wealth, but of worlds, where whispers of judgment could unravel everything. The distant sound of car doors slamming in the driveway jolted her upright. Voices carried through the gravel. Mrs. Carter, the head housekeeper, barked orders to the returning staff. The canceled gala had left the mansion quiet, but now it would buzz with activity again. Amara's stomach twisted. She couldn't be found here, in Ethan's private quarters. Her uniform crumpled on the floor. She slipped from the bed, gathering her clothes with shaking hands, the weight of their night pressing against her chest. Ethan stirred, his eyes opening, and for a moment they looked at each other, the air heavy with unspoken questions. "Good morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep, a faint smile curving his lips. But there was a shadow in his blue eyes, a flicker of retreat that made Amara's breath catch. "Good morning," she replied, pulling the sheet higher, suddenly self-conscious, despite the intimacy they'd shared. "The staff's back. I need to go." Ethan sat up, running a hand through his hair. "Wait, Amara, we need to talk about this." His voice was gentle, but there was a distance, a return to the controlled CEO she'd seen in boardroom glances. Before she could respond, Mrs. Carter's voice echoed up the stairs, calling for the cleaning crew. Amara dressed quickly, her movements mechanical, her heart sinking. "I know it's complicated," she said softly, avoiding his gaze. I need to go." Ethan's expression was unreadable, but he nodded. "We'll talk later. I promise." Amara slipped out, navigating the mansion's back corridors to the servants' quarters, her mind a whirl of hope and dread. Mrs. Carter caught her in the hallway, her warm brown eyes narrowing with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost, child," she said, pressing a hand to Amara's shoulder. "Whatever's weighing you, don't let it dim your light." Amara managed a smile, grateful for the older woman's kindness, but the weight of Ethan's promise felt fragile against the reality of their worlds. Days passed in a blur of routine, arranging flowers, polishing silver, avoiding Ethan's study. At breakfast, he appeared in his impeccable suit, greeting the staff with polite detachment, his eyes meeting Amara's only briefly before he retreated to his office. Each glance was a knife, a reminder that their night was an aberration, a moment he seemed determined to erase. Amara tried to focus on her work, drawing on her mother's lessons of resilience, but the silence between them gnawed at her. 3 weeks later, nausea crept in, subtle at first, then undeniable. Amara bought a pregnancy test from a pharmacy in a neighboring town, her hands trembling as she took it in a gas station bathroom. The positive result stared back at her, a truth as overwhelming as the night that led to it. She was carrying Ethan's child. That evening, she waited until the mansion was quiet before knocking on his study door. Ethan looked up from his laptop, surprise flickering across his face. "Amara, is everything all right? I need to talk to you," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She stood, unwilling to sit, knowing comfort might sap her courage. "I'm pregnant." The words hung like a detonation. Ethan's face paled, his blue eyes wide with shock. He stood slowly, moving to the window overlooking the rose gardens, his shoulders rigid. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. 3 tests, Amara said, her hands clasped tightly. "All positive." Ethan was silent for a long moment, staring into the darkening sky. When he turned back, his expression was a mask of composure. He said, "I'll arrange a generous severance package," his tone businesslike. "And financial support for the child, of course." The words hit like a physical blow, cold and final. Amara's chest tightened, but she drew on her mother's strength. the woman who'd rebuilt a life after loss. "That's it?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "Money and a goodbye?" Ethan's jaw clenched, a flicker of pain breaking through his facade. This was a mistake, Amara. One night that shouldn't have happened. Each word was a shard, cutting through the hope she'd clung to. Amara saw the fear in his eyes, not of her, but of feeling anything again. "I know," she said, her voice steady despite the ache. "I won't take your money, Ethan, and I won't stay here to watch you pretend that night meant nothing." She turned toward the door, pausing only to add, "I'll be gone by morning." As Amara walked away, Ethan stood frozen, surrounded by his wealth and solitude. In her small room, she packed her belongings, her mother's words echoing. "You plant your garden, Amara, no matter the soil." She would build a life for her child, rooted in love, not regret. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose your path? Share your story in the comments. Your courage inspires us. If Amara's resolve moves you, hit that like button to keep her journey growing. Subscribe and ring the bell to see how she rises from this heartbreak. The Brooklyn apartment. Amara Wilson called home was a far cry from the Langley Mansion's marble halls, its peeling paint and creaky floors a testament to years of honest wear. Sunlight streamed through the small kitchen window, catching dust motes that danced like tiny fireflies, as Amara arranged a bouquet of lilies for tomorrow's delivery. The scent of lavender, tucked in a vase by the sink, filled the air, a nod to her mother's Atlanta garden, where she'd learned to nurture beauty from hardship. 3 years had passed since she'd left the Hamptons, her suitcase light, but her heart heavy with Ethan Langley's rejection. As she watched her son, Noah, stack wooden blocks into a wobbly tower, she felt a quiet pride. This life, built from her sweat and dreams, was enough. Noah, 3 years old, with his father's piercing blue eyes and her warm smile, hummed softly as he worked, his small hands precise. "Mama, look! It's a castle for brave knights," he called, his voice bright with pride. Amara knelt beside him, her fingers brushing his curly hair. "It's magnificent, baby," she said, her heart swelling. Noah was her miracle, a blend of her resilience and Ethan's intensity, his curiosity sparking memories of the man she'd tried to forget. She'd caught herself, late at night, tracing his features in a magazine clipping hidden in her jewelry box, a painful reminder of the night that changed everything. Amara's flower shop, Blossoms of Hope, sat in a trendy corner of Brooklyn, its shelves bursting with roses, peonies, and her signature story bouquets, arrangements that captured love, loss, or celebration. She'd poured every penny of her savings and a small business loan into it, inspired by her mother's community garden, where flowers were gifts for the soul. The shop barely broke even, but it was hers, where she wove beauty into people's lives. Couples came for anniversary bouquets, telling their love story. Parents ordered birthday arrangements, mirroring their children's quirks. Each sale was a step towards stability, a promise to Noah that they'd always have enough. Her neighbors had become her family. Mrs. Lopez, a 70-year-old Puerto Rican grandmother next door, brewed café con leche every morning, her stories of raising 3 kids in Brooklyn a lifeline during Amara's toughest days. "Mija, you're stronger than you know," she'd say, passing a warm mug across their shared fence. Amara's best friend and a social worker, Lena, pushed her to open the shop, her no-nonsense encouragement a spark when doubt crept in. "You're not just a maid, Amara," Lena had said, helping her file the loan paperwork. "You're an artist with roots deeper than that mansion's roses." Music was their refuge. Each evening, Amara played her mother's old vinyls, Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, Nina Simone, filling their small living room with soulful notes. Noah would dance, his giggles a melody of their own, as Amara sang along to Ain't No Mountain High Enough, her voice soft but sure. She'd written countless unsent letters to Ethan, pouring her heart onto paper before burning them in the sink. But music was her release, a way to share love with Noah, without the weight of words. "Sing the pretty song, Mama," Noah requested, curling into her lap as Simone's Feeling Good began. Amara hummed, her voice weaving through the lyrics, promising new beginnings. Noah's kindness, like when he shared his apple slices with a shy daycare friend, reminded her of her mother's lessons. Give what you can, even when it's hard. But his blue eyes, like Ethan's, sometimes stole her breath, a bittersweet echo of a love she'd buried. She'd told Noah his father was far away, loving him from a distance, a half-truth to shield his young heart. Late at night, when the city hummed outside, Amara wondered if Ethan ever thought of her, if he'd moved on, his life a blur of boardrooms and gala lights. Business magazines, a habit she couldn't break, showed him alone, his face a mask of control, no hint of the man who'd played piano in the dark. Saturdays were for the shop, where Noah played with toy cars in a corner, his chatter a backdrop to Amara's work. The morning sun lit the store, its shelves a riot of color, each bloom a story she'd crafted. She was arranging a funeral bouquet, white roses and eucalyptus, for a client's lost mother, when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up, her standard greeting ready, then froze. Ethan Langley stood in her doorway, his suit impeccable, but his posture weary, new lines around his blue eyes. The air crackled with the weight of 3 years. A melody paused, but not forgotten. What would you do if a past love walked back into your life? Drop a comment and share. Your stories keep our tale alive. If Amara's new beginning inspires you, hit that like button to root for her journey. Subscribe and ring the bell to see what Ethan's return means for her and Noah. The bell above the door of Blossoms of Hope chimed, shattering the quiet hum of Amara Wilson's Brooklyn flower shop. She looked up from a funeral bouquet of white roses and eucalyptus, her standard greeting faltering as Ethan Langley stepped inside. His charcoal suit was impeccable, but new lines creased his blue eyes, a weariness that spoke of years spent in solitude. The morning sun streamed through the shop's windows, illuminating the vibrant blooms and casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Amara's fingers tightened around a rose stem, the scent of lavender from a nearby vase grounding her as memories of their candlelit night 3 years ago flooded back. She hadn't seen him since she'd left the Hamptons, pregnant and heartbroken, yet he stood in her carefully built world. "Mama, who's that?" Noah's voice piped up from the corner, where he sat coloring a picture of a dragon. His blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, lifted from the page, studying the stranger with the frank curiosity of a 3-year-old. Amara's breath caught, the weight of those eyes a mirror to the man she'd tried to forget. Ethan froze, his gaze locking onto Noah, the color draining from his face as recognition hit. The shop seemed to shrink, the air thick with the unspoken truth of their shared past. "Hello, Ethan," Amara said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. She set the bouquet down, wiping her hands on her apron, a habit from her mother's garden days in Atlanta. "I'm sorry for your loss," she added, her professional tone kicking in as she recalled his purpose, funeral flowers for his father. "I can help with the arrangement." Ethan's eyes lingered on Noah, who had returned to his coloring, humming a snippet of Nina Simone's Feeling Good that Amara sang to him at bedtime. "Thank you," Ethan said, his voice rough, almost breaking. "I need something for my father's service, something dignified." He struggled to focus, his gaze drifting back to Noah, whose small tongue poked out in concentration. He's beautiful, Ethan murmured, the words slipping out like a confession. Amara's heart clenched, but she kept her composure, drawing on her mother's lessons of strength. Hold your ground, Amara, even when the world shakes. He is, she said softly. His name's Noah. She hesitated, then added, He's 3. The implication hung between them, a truth Ethan couldn't miss. His hands clenched at his sides, a flicker of wonder and pain crossing his face. Mama, why's the man sad? Noah asked, looking up again, his dragon now a riot of green and blue. He looks like the picture in your box. Amara's cheeks warmed, her mind flashing to the magazine clipping of Ethan she kept hidden in her jewelry box, shown to Noah when he asked about his father. She'd told him his daddy was far away, loving him, a gentle shield for a child's heart. He's here for flowers, baby, she said, forcing a smile. Why don't you draw him something special? Noah nodded, returning to his crayons, and Amara turned to Ethan, her voice low. He doesn't know who you are. I didn't know how to tell him. Her words were honest, tinged with the ache of 3 years spent building a life without him. Ethan ran a hand through his dark hair, his composure cracking. I didn't know, Amara. I swear I didn't know. She said you didn't want to, not accusingly, but with quiet truth. You made that clear when I left. She thought of Lena, her friend who'd sat with her through tearful nights, insisting she was enough for Noah. And Mrs. Lopez brought café con leche and stories of her struggles, reminding Amara that love was built, not bought. Their support had carried her here, to this shop, this life. Ethan moved closer to the counter, his voice barely above a whisper. I was wrong. I was afraid. After Claire, I thought pushing you away was the only way to keep you safe. But seeing him, he glanced at Noah, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I can't undo what I did, but I want to know him. I want to know you, if you'll let me. Amara's throat tightened, her mother's words echoing. Love is a choice, not a chain. She saw the man who'd played piano in the dark, not the CEO who'd offered her money to disappear. But trust was fragile, and she'd spent 3 years tending her garden. He's my world, Ethan, she said. Any step you take has to be for him, not for guilt or obligation. Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. I understand. I need a chance to start. Noah looked up, holding out his drawing, a dragon surrounded by flowers. For your sad day, he said, his small voice earnest. Ethan knelt to Noah's level, taking the paper with care. Thank you, he said, his voice thick. It's perfect. Amara quoted a price for the funeral arrangement, which was fair but not cheap, and Ethan agreed without hesitation. He said, I'll pick them up Monday, his eyes lingering on her. If that's all right. She nodded, sensing this was more than a transaction. As he left, the bell chiming behind him, Noah's voice broke the silence. Mama, he smells like the cologne in your box. Amara's heart stopped, the truth of their connection blooming like a flower she couldn't ignore. Have you ever faced a reunion that changed everything? Share your story in the comments. Your moments fuel our tale. If this spark between Amara and Ethan moves you, hit that like button to keep their story growing. Subscribe and ring the bell to see how Noah's drawing shifts their world. The bell above Blossoms of Hope chimed softly as Ethan Langley stepped into the flower shop, the Brooklyn afternoon casting a warm glow across shelves of vibrant peonies and daisies. Amara Wilson looked up from an intricate wedding bouquet, her brown eyes wary but softened by the sight of him. After Ethan's shock at seeing Noah, his son, whose blue eyes mirrored his own, 3 days had passed. The weight of that moment lingered, a melody unfinished, as Amara arranged flowers with the precision of her mother's Atlanta garden. Noah napped upstairs, his soft snores drifting through the shop's back curtain, a reminder of the fragile stakes between them. Ethan's suit was crisp, but his dark hair was slightly mussed, a sign of the restless nights since their reunion. Amara said I wasn't sure you'd come back, setting down a sprig of baby's breath, her voice steady but laced with caution. She wore a cream sundress, its simplicity highlighting the elegant curve of her neck, contrasting with the uniform she'd once worn in his mansion. Ethan moved closer to the counter, his hands clasped behind his back, as if anchoring himself. I meant it, Amara, he said, his voice low and earnest. I want to know him, and you. Amara's fingers brushed the lavender vase by her side, its scent grounding her as memories of their candlelit night 3 years ago surfaced. Her mother's words echoed. Love is a choice, Amara, but it starts with truth. She studied Ethan, seeing the man playing piano in the dark, not the CEO pushing her away. Why now? She asked, her tone gentle but firm. 3 years, Ethan. What's changed? Ethan's gaze dropped to the bouquet, then lifted to meet hers, his blue eyes raw with vulnerability. I've been in therapy, he admitted, the words heavy but deliberate. After Claire's accident, I shut down. My father taught me that control was strength. Never show weakness. Never let go. I thought I was protecting you by allowing you to leave, keeping you safe from my damage. He paused, swallowing hard. But therapy's shown me I was wrong. I pushed you away because I was terrified of failing someone I loved again. Amara's chest tightened. The echo of her losses, her father's death, Ethan's rejection, stirring. She thought of Lena, her social worker friend, who'd urged her to face her fears when opening the shop, and Mrs. Lopez, who'd shared stories of overcoming judgment in Brooklyn. She said I was scared too, her voice soft. Not just of you, but of what people would say. A maid with your child, stepping into a world that doesn't welcome me. I built this life for Noah, for me, because I had to. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight with regret. I read about you in a local paper. Your shop, story, bouquets. I didn't know about Noah then, but I kept the article. It was the first time I felt alive since you left. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a folded clipping, its edges worn. I'm not here to fix the past, Amara. I want a chance to be part of his future. And yours, if you'll let me. Noah's sleepy voice from upstairs broke the shop's quiet, talking to his stuffed elephant. Mama, I'm awake. Amara's lips curved into a smile, but her eyes stayed on Ethan. He's my everything, she said. Any step you take has to be for him, not to ease your guilt. Her mother's lessons on love as a deliberate act guided her, but so did Lena's advice. Trust takes time, but it starts with honesty. I know, Ethan said, his voice steady. I never had a father who showed me how to be one. Mine was cold. It was all business, and there was no warmth. But I want to learn from Noah. He hesitated, then added, I brought something. He pulled a small wrapped package, a set of wooden blocks, from his pocket for Noah. I don't know what kids like, but the store clerk said these are good for building. Amara took the package, her fingers brushing his, a spark of their old connection flickering. He loves building, she said, her voice softening. Come back tomorrow, during his nap. We can talk more then. It was an olive branch, fragile but real, rooted in her hope for Noah's happiness. Ethan nodded, relief flooding his features. Thank you, Amara, for giving me a chance. As he left, the bell chiming behind him, Amara sank into a chair, the bouquet forgotten. Noah bounded downstairs, clutching his elephant, and climbed into her lap. "Was that the flower man?" he asked, his blue eyes bright. "He likes my drawings." Amara kissed his forehead, the scent of lavender mingling with his warmth. "He does, baby," she said, her mind on the magazine clipping in her jewelry box, where Ethan's face still lived. Music drifted from the shop's small speaker, Nina Simone's "I Put a Spell on You," a reminder of the pull she couldn't quite escape. Have you ever faced a moment where trust hung in the balance? Share your story in the comments. Your courage keeps this tale alive. If Ethan's awakening moves you, hit that like button to root for his redemption. Subscribe and ring the bell to see how Amara and Noah open their hearts. Continue writing part 8, about 5,000 characters, using correct grammar, spelling, capitalization, punctuation, etc. Avoid repeating the character's age and race in later parts of the story. Continue writing part 8, about 5,000 characters, using correct grammar, spelling, capitalization, punctuation, etc. Avoid repeating the character's age and race in later parts of the story. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of Blossoms of Hope, casting a golden glow over the Brooklyn flower shop's shelves of vibrant tulips and lilies. Amara Wilson knelt beside a display, arranging a bouquet of sunflowers, their bright petals a mirror to her cautious hope. Noah, her 3-year-old son, played in the corner, his blue eyes focused on a tower of wooden blocks, the gift from Ethan Langley that had sparked his latest obsession. The shop's small speaker played Diana Ross's "I'm Coming Out," its upbeat rhythm filling the space with warmth, a nod to the evening rituals Amara had inherited from her mother's Atlanta home. Ethan's visits had become a quiet rhythm over the past week, each during Noah's nap time, a careful step toward rebuilding what they'd lost 3 years ago. Ethan pushed through the shop's door, the bell chiming softly, his dark hair slightly tousled, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder. His blue eyes lit up as he spotted Noah, who looked up and grinned. "Flower man," Noah called, waving a block. "Want to see my castle?" Ethan knelt beside him, his smile genuine but tinged with awe, as if still marveling at the boy who carried his features. "I'd love to," he said, his voice steady, though Amara caught the flicker of nervousness in his gaze. Amara watched them, her hands pausing on a sunflower stem. Her mother's words echoed. "Love grows where you tend it, Amara, but it needs room to breathe." She'd been wary, guarding Noah's heart, but Ethan's patience was undeniable. He'd brought blocks, listened to Noah's stories, and never pushed for more than she was ready to give. Lena, her social worker friend, had urged her to let Ethan in, saying over coffee, "He's showing up, Amara." That's where trust starts. Mrs. Lopez, her neighbor, had nodded sagely over café con leche, sharing tales of her own family's rocky beginnings. "Give him time, mija. Roots take hold slowly." "Look, it's got a bridge now," Noah said, pointing to his block structure, his curly hair bouncing excitedly. Ethan examined it, his fingers tracing the curves with care. "This is impressive, Noah. You're an architect already." Noah beamed, then tilted his head. "Mama says my daddy's far away, but he loves me. Do you have a little boy?" The question hung in the air, innocent but piercing, and Amara's breath caught. She'd told Noah stories to soften the truth, but his curiosity grew sharper. Ethan glanced at Amara, his eyes seeking permission. She nodded slightly, her heart heavy with the weight of what might come. "I hope to have a little boy like you someday," Ethan said carefully, his voice thick with emotion. "Someone who builds amazing things." Noah nodded, satisfied, and returned to his blocks, humming the melody of "I'm Coming Out." Amara felt a pang, knowing she'd need to tell Noah the truth soon. but not until she was sure. She moved to the counter, where Ethan joined her, his presence familiar yet charged. "He's incredible," he said, his voice low. "The way he thinks and sees the world. It's like you, but with this spark." Amara smiled, her fingers brushing the lavender vase nearby. "She said he gets that from both of us," her tone softening. "He asks about his father more now. I tell him he's loved, but it's getting harder to dodge the questions." Ethan's jaw tightened, regret shadowing his face. "I want to be there for him, Amara. Not just visits, but they are there. I've been talking to my therapist about how to be a father when I never had one worth copying." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "I'm learning, but I need your help. Please show me how to do this right." Amara's chest warmed, the sincerity in his words echoing the man who'd played piano in the dark. She considered their evening rituals and how music had always been her bridge to Noah. "Come tonight," she said, a decision forming. "After dinner, we play records. Noah loves it. You can join us and see what he's like when he's not building castles." Inviting Ethan into their home was a risk, but Lena's words rang true. Trust started with showing up. That evening, their small apartment glowed with lamplight, the air filled with the soulful strains of Nina Simone's Feeling Good. Noah danced, his bare feet pattering on the rug, as Amara sang softly, her voice weaving through the lyrics. Ethan sat on the couch, watching with a quiet wonder, then joined in, clapping to the beat. Noah giggled, grabbing Ethan's hands to pull him into the dance. "Spin me," he demanded, and Ethan obliged, his laughter blending with Noah's. Amara's heart lifted, the music binding them in a moment of unguarded joy. Noah curled into Amara's lap as the song ended, sleepy but content. "Flower man's fun, Mama," he murmured, his blue eyes drooping. Ethan's gaze met Amara's, a silent question in his expression. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft, "for letting me be part of this." Amara nodded, her mother's lessons guiding her. Love was a garden, and this was a new sprout, delicate but growing. Have you ever taken a chance on trust that felt like a leap? Share your story in the comments. Your moments keep this tale blooming. If this family's budding bond warms your heart, hit that like button to cheer them on. Subscribe and ring the bell to see how their dance grows in the next chapter. The late afternoon light bathed blossoms of hope in a golden hue, the Brooklyn flower shop alive with the scent of lavender and the soft hum of Aretha Franklin's Respect from a small speaker. Amara Wilson trimmed a bouquet of roses, her brown eyes focused, but her thoughts drifting to Ethan Langley's steady presence over the past weeks. Her 3-year-old son Noah sat on the floor, his blue eyes bright as he built a sprawling block city, narrating a tale of brave knights and kind queens. Ethan's visits had woven into their routine, his patience with Noah's endless questions and his quiet respect for Amara's boundaries stirring a cautious hope in her heart. The bell chimed, and Ethan stepped inside, his dark hair slightly mussed, his suit jacket draped over one arm. He carried a paper bag from a local bakery, the scent of fresh croissants mingling with the flowers. "For our architect," he said, smiling at Noah, who bounded over, clutching a block. "Ethan, look, it's a tower for dragons to visit." Ethan knelt, his blue eyes warm as he examined the structure. "It's perfect, Noah. Dragons would love it." Noah grinned, then returned to his city, leaving Amara and Ethan in a quiet. Amara set down her shears, wiping her hands on her apron. Her mother's words echoed. "Love is a garden, Amara. It needs tending, not control." Ethan's consistency, showing up, listening, learning, had begun to erode her walls, But the memory of his rejection 3 years ago lingered. Lena, her friend, had said over coffee, "He's proving himself, Amara. Let him try." Mrs. Lopez, her neighbor, shared stories of her leap into love, urging Mija, "A good man grows with you, not against you." "I've been thinking," Ethan said, his voice measured as he leaned against the counter, his gaze steady, "about what this could look like. Us, Noah. A real future." Amara's breath caught, the weight of his words settling like a seed in fertile soil. "What do you mean?" she asked, though she sensed where this was heading, her mother's lessons urging her to listen. Ethan said, "I want us to be a family," his eyes searching hers. "Not just visits, but a home. There's a house in Park Slope, Victorian, not too big, with a garden for your flowers and a yard for Noah's castles. I made an offer, but it's contingent on you. I won't move forward unless you're ready." He pulled a photo from his pocket, showing a charming house with a wraparound porch and an apple tree. "I see you there, Amara, planting lavender. I see Noah climbing that tree." Amara took the photo, her fingers brushing his, a spark of their old connection flickering. The house was cozy, not ostentatious, with space for her dreams. But fear tugged at her, memories of leaving the Hamptons, pregnant and alone. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice soft. "But it's a lot, Ethan. I built this life, me, Noah, this shop, because I had to stand alone. Depending on you again, it scares me." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight, but his eyes gentle. "I know I hurt you. My therapist keeps reminding me, love isn't about fixing the past. It's about showing up now. I'm trying to do that for you and Noah." He glanced at Noah, who was singing a made-up song about dragons, his voice a joyful echo of their evening music rituals. "I want him to have a father who's there, not far away." Noah looked up, his blue eyes curious. "Mama, is Ethan lonely? My towers are for people who need friends." Amara's heart softened, Noah's innocence cutting through her doubts. She thought of Lena's encouragement, Mrs. Lopez's wisdom, and the music that bound her and Noah. Now, maybe, Ethan too. "He's not lonely when he's with you, baby," she said, ruffling his curly hair. "Let's see the house," she said to Ethan, her voice steady, but her chest warm with possibility. "Noah and I'll come with you. But this is a step, not a promise." Ethan's face lit up, relief and hope mingling in his smile. "That's all I'm asking," he said. "A step." That weekend, they visited the Park Slope house, its garden alive with potential for roses and lavender. Noah raced to the apple tree, his laughter ringing as he declared it perfect for climbing. Amara walked the grounds, envisioning her mother's garden reborn here, a place to grow with Noah, and maybe Ethan. The cozy rooms felt like a home, not a mansion, a space where music could fill the evenings. Noah tugged Ethan's hand, pointing to a corner. "That's for my blocks," he said, then turned to Amara. "Mama, can we sing here like at home?" "We can," Amara said, her eyes meeting Ethan's, the melody of Nina Simone's "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" in her mind. This was a risk, but her mother's lessons, Lena's faith, and Noah's joy urged her forward. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's try this for Noah." Ethan's hand found hers, a quiet promise. Have you ever leaped into a new beginning? Share your story in the comments. Your courage inspires us. If Amara and Ethan's step toward family moves you, hit that like button to cheer them on. Subscribe and ring the bell to see how their new home shapes their future. Rain tapped against the kitchen window of the Park Slope house, a gentle rhythm that contrasted with the storm brewing inside. Amara Wilson sat at the oak table, her brown eyes fixed on a stack of legal documents, their stark white pages a jarring intrusion into the cozy home she'd built with Ethan Langley and their son, Noah. The scent of lavender from a potted plant on the counter grounded her, a reminder of her mother's Atlanta garden, where resilience was sown alongside roses. Noah played upstairs, his voice drifting down as he narrated a Block City adventure, oblivious to the threat below. Ethan stood by the sink, his blue eyes dark with barely contained fury, his dark hair mussed from running his hands through it. "I don't understand," Amara said, her voice steady but tight, tracing the words "custody petition" on the top page. "Who filed this?" The documents, delivered by Ethan's lawyer that morning, accused him of being an unfit father and Amara of exploiting him for financial gain. The plaintiffs are Claire's parents, who seek custody of Noah, their late daughter's supposed stepson. Ethan's jaw clenched, his hands gripping the counter. "They blame me for Claire's death," he said, his voice low and bitter. "This is their revenge, taking the family I've found." He'd shared in therapy how his need to control had fueled the argument that led to Claire's fatal drive, a guilt he was still unraveling. Now, her parents twisted that pain into a legal assault, claiming Noah deserved their stable care. Amara's chest tightened, but she drew on her mother's words. "You plant your garden, Amara, no matter the storm." The petition detailed months of surveillance, painting their love as a scandal, Amara as a gold digger, Ethan as unstable. It exploited societal biases, questioning her place in his world. "She said they're calling me a fortune hunter," her voice hollow. Noah grew up in a morally corrupt environment. The words stung, echoing whispers she'd feared when she left the Hamptons. Noah's voice called down, "Mama, my tower fell." His innocent chatter cut through the tension, and Amara forced a smile. "We'll fix it, baby," she called back, her eyes on Ethan. "This could hurt him," she said softly. "Photographers at daycare and gossip in the neighborhood. How do I protect him from that?" She thought of Lena, her friend, who'd faced similar judgment as a single mother, and Mrs. Lopez, who'd shared stories of fighting prejudice in Brooklyn. Their strength bolstered her, but the fear remained. Ethan moved to her side, his hand hovering before resting on hers. "My lawyer says they have no legal standing," he said. "Claire wasn't Noah's mother, and their claim is baseless. But the process, depositions, character witnesses, will drag us through the mud." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "I want to fight this, Amara, not just in court, but by living openly as a family, showing the world who we are." Amara's throat tightened, the weight of scrutiny looming. She'd built blossoms of hope to stand alone, but this battle threatened Noah's peace. "What if it's too much?" she asked, her voice low. "What if fighting makes it worse for him?" Ethan's grip tightened, gentle but firm. "We face it together. Not hiding, not running. We show Noah what love looks like when it stands firm." Noah's humming drifted down upstairs, a snippet of Nina Simone's "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," their evening ritual now a lifeline. Amara thought of Lena's advice. Love is worth the fight, but only if you're both all in. Mrs. Lopez had echoed this, her café con leche warm in Amara's hands as she said, "Mija, you don't let others tear down what you've grown." Their words steadied her, but doubt lingered. Could they withstand the public's gaze? "I'm scared," Amara admitted, her eyes meeting Ethan's, not just of them, but of losing what we're building. Ethan's expression softened, his therapy-honed honesty shining through. "I'm scared too." But I've learned fear doesn't get to win. Not when it's about you and Noah. He pulled her close, his voice a whisper. We'll hire the best lawyers and call witnesses. Lena, Mrs. Carter, and anyone who knows us. We'll prove them wrong by being us. Noah bounded downstairs, clutching a block. Mama, Ethan, see my city. His blue eyes sparkled, unaware of the papers threatening his world. Amara stood, squeezing Ethan's hand. For him, she said, her resolve firming. We fight for him. The music shifted to Aretha Franklin's Respect. Its beat, a call to stand tall. They'd face the depositions, the whispers, the judgment, not as individuals, but as a family. Have you ever fought for something worth everything? Share your story in the comments. Your strength fuels this tale. If Amara and Ethan's stand moves you, hit that like button to cheer their fight. Subscribe and ring the bell to see how they face this storm together. The Park Slope garden bloomed with lavender and roses, its vibrant colors starkly contrasting with the legal storm that had loomed over Amara Wilson and Ethan Langley for months. Amara stood in their backyard, adjusting a wreath of baby's breath in her hair, her brown eyes reflecting the afternoon sun. Her cream silk dress, a vintage find, shimmered with delicate beadwork, a choice inspired by her mother's love for timeless beauty. Their 3-year-old son Noah bounced beside her, his blue eyes sparkling as he clutched a wooden box he'd crafted for their wedding rings. Ethan waited beneath a rose-covered arbor, his dark hair neat, but his blue eyes bright with emotion, his charcoal suit tailored, but unpretentious. The custody battle with Claire's parents had ended weeks ago, dismissed by a judge who saw through their grief-fueled claims. But the real victory was this moment, their family, whole and unyielding. The legal fight had been grueling. Depositions had dragged on, with Claire's parents painting Amara as an opportunist and Ethan as unstable, their accusations laced with societal biases that stung. Lena, Amara's social worker friend, had testified to her strength as a mother, her voice steady in court as she described Amara's sacrifice for Noah. Mrs. Carter, the former Langley housekeeper, had spoken of Ethan's growth, her warm testimony recalling his kindness beneath the CEO's facade. Mrs. Lopez, their Brooklyn neighbor, had offered moral support, and her café con leche was a constant during late-night strategy sessions. The judge's dismissal, citing no legal standing, had been a relief, but the process had tested Amara's resolve, her fear of losing Noah a shadow she'd carried since leaving the Hamptons. Ethan's proposal had come in the kitchen, amidst the legal chaos, not as a tactic, but a vow. Marry me, Amara, he'd said, his voice rough with conviction. Not to fight them, but because I want to choose you daily. Her mother's words had guided her. Love is a garden, Amara, tended with courage. She'd said yes, her heart open despite the risks, trusting the man who'd learned to show up. As they stood in their garden, surrounded by friends and flowers, Amara felt that courage bloom. Noah tugged her hand, his curly hair bouncing. Mama, you look like a princess, he said, his voice loud and proud. But the kind who saves herself. Amara laughed, kneeling to adjust his tiny tie. And you're my brave knight, baby, she said, her heart swelling at his joy. Noah's questions about his father had eased since learning Ethan was daddy, his acceptance a child's gift, though he'd drawn a picture of sad daddies becoming happy to process it. His perspective, so pure, had anchored Amara through the trial. The officiant, a warm woman who'd counseled them through blending their family, began. Dearly beloved, we celebrate Amara, Ethan, and Noah, the family they've become. The ceremony was simple, personal, and rooted in their shared journey. Noah, as ring-bearer, presented the wooden box with a flourish, his grin infectious as guests chuckled. Ethan's vows came first, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Amara, you showed me love isn't control, but partnership. You gave me Noah, who teaches me joy every day. I promise to choose you, grow with you, and build a life where love is our foundation. Amara's vows, written on paper that trembled slightly, were strong. Ethan, you became the man I always saw in you, the father Noah deserves. You've shown me that love is showing up, day after day. I promise to tend our passion with patience and faith, like this garden through every season. Their kiss, sealing their commitment, was met with cheers, but Amara felt only Ethan's warmth, his hands framing her face, and Noah's giggle nearby. The reception unfolded in the garden, with mismatched chairs from neighbors and string lights twinkling in the apple tree. Mrs. Lopez's three-tiered cake, adorned with sugar roses, stood proudly, her smile wide as she hugged Amara. Lena raised a glass, toasting their resilience, her eyes shining with pride. Music filled the air. Ethan at a new outdoor piano, playing a joyful melody he'd composed, a blend of hope and healing. Amara joined him, humming Nina Simone's Feeling Good, their voices weaving together as Noah danced, his dress shoes kicking up grass. The song was their story, a testament to new beginnings. As the sun set, painting the sky in rose and gold, Amara and Ethan stood hand in hand, watching Noah chase fireflies. Their love, forged in crisis, was stronger for it, a garden tended with courage. Have you ever found strength in love's most challenging moments? Share your story in the comments. Your heart keeps this tale alive. If Amara and Ethan's vows move you, hit that like button to celebrate their bond. Subscribe and ring the bell to see their forever unfold in the final chapter. The park's slope garden glowed under the October dusk, its lavender and roses swaying gently as a cool breeze rustled the leaves. Amara Wilson sat on the back porch, her brown eyes tracing the apple tree silhouette where Noah, their 4-year-old son, climbed with fearless glee. Ethan Langley sat beside her, his blue eyes soft, his dark hair catching the last rays of sunlight. Their home, a Victorian haven they'd made their own, hummed with life. Noah's block cities sprawling across the living room, Amara's flower arrangements brightening every corner, and the faint strains of Nina Simone's Ain't Got No, I Got Life drifting from the outdoor piano Ethan had installed. 8 months after their wedding, their love had grown roots deep enough to weather any storm. Noah's laughter rang out as he waved from the tree. "Mama, Daddy, look! I'm a knight!" His blue eyes sparkled, his curly hair bouncing as he mimicked a sword fight. Amara smiled, her heart full. Noah had embraced Ethan as daddy, and his crayon drawings now featured happy families with towers and flowers. He'd once asked, "Why was Daddy far away before?" Amara had answered honestly, inspired by her mother's wisdom. "He was learning to be brave, baby, so he could love us right." Noah's pure and unwavering acceptance was a gift, his perspective shaping their family's joy. Though dismissed months ago, the custody battle with Claire's parents had left echoes. The depositions, fueled by accusations of Amara's opportunism and Ethan's instability, had drawn whispers from neighbors and curious glances at Noah's daycare. Amara's social worker friend, Lena, had countered the gossip, organizing community events to showcase blossoms of hope as a beacon of love. Mrs. Lopez, their neighbor, hosted coffee mornings, and her stories of overcoming prejudice in Brooklyn were a reminder to stand tall. Mrs. Carter, the former Langley housekeeper, sent letters from her retirement home, her words of pride for Ethan's growth a quiet anchor. Their support had turned judgment into acceptance, proving their family's strength. Ethan's hand found Amara's, his fingers warm and sure. He'd stepped back from Prescott Industries, delegating to trusted executives to prioritize family. His therapy had helped him unravel the control he'd inherited from his cold father, making space for bedtime stories and piano lessons with Noah. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice soft as he watched Noah climb, "about how love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice we make every day." Amara nodded, her mother's lessons echoing. "Love is a garden, Amara, tended with courage." She leaned against him, the scent of lavender clinging to her hair. "I used to think love had to be perfect," she said. "But these moments, Noah's laughter, your music, our garden, make it real." She thought of the legal battle and how it had forced them to face their fears publicly. "Even the whispers and judgment showed me we're stronger together." Noah ran to them, clutching a crumpled drawing of a castle with 3 figures. "Mama, Daddy, and me. It's our home," he said, his voice serious, "for when we're happy or sad." Amara's eyes were misted, and Noah's perspective reminded them of what they'd built. Ethan lifted him onto his lap, studying the drawing. "It's perfect, buddy," he said, his voice thick. "You make us happy every day." Music filled the air as Ethan moved to the piano, his fingers finding a melody he'd composed for their wedding, a joyful blend of hope and healing. Amara joined him, humming "Ain't Got No I Got Life," her voice weaving through the notes as Noah danced, his bare feet pattering on the grass. Lena, visiting for dinner, clapped along, her laughter mingling with Mrs. Lopez's, who'd brought her famous tres leches cake. The community they'd forged, from courtroom battles to garden evenings, was their true victory. As night fell, the stars emerged, and Amara rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Are you scared?" she asked, her voice soft. "Of losing this?" Ethan pressed a kiss to her temple, his voice steady. "Not anymore. We've faced the worst. Grief, judgment, fear. And we're still here. I choose you, Amara. I choose us." Thunder rumbled faintly, a distant storm, but Amara felt no fear. Like their garden, their love was rooted deep, tended daily, and bloomed through every season. Some loves never end. They grow, season after season, stronger with each challenge. What's a love story that's inspired you to keep choosing? Share it in the comments. Your stories make ours bloom. If Amara and Ethan's forever warms your heart, hit that like button to celebrate their journey. Subscribe and ring the bell to catch more tales of love and resilience.